everybody, this is Sue Craig, your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in Cleveland, Ohio, and today I have a technique for you. I saw this technique on Tina Zink's YouTube and had to try it. I'm telling you, when you see this technique, you're going to get out all your embossing folders and try for yourself to see the different types of backgrounds you can make for your cards. You can make both masculine and feminine cards. Let me show you how we do that. The embossing folders that I'm going to be using today are from the set that's called Glass and Garden, and these are new embossing folders that are coming out on Tuesday from our beverage suite. And this first one has impressions so that you can give texture to the glasses that are in the set, and the second one has an image that has flowers. So I want to use that, and you'll notice that these are narrow folders so that you can use them on only parts of the fronts or the insides of your cards. Let me show you how we do this technique. There's two ways to do it. The first way that Tina demonstrated was to draw score lines and then put that into your embossing folder, and that works. One thing that happens, however, is that when you do this, the embossing technique here, it will kind of wipe out the lines that you've drawn. So you may have to redraw the lines that you drew. Let me show you another way to do this. So we're going to take a piece of very vanilla cardstock and put it in to our embossing folder. And we're going to run it through the Stampin' Up! Emboss cut machine, and we'll show you what we have. Typically, when we emboss, we are going for the side that is raised. But on this technique, what we want to do is use this side that is debossed. It's actually back of what we typically use. So what we're going to do is take our scoring tool, and we're going to put this with the debossed side up into our area here. And this paper is larger than I typically would use. It is 4.5 by 6.5 because that's just the size that I had. I like to use a bigger piece so that I can ink it up and then cut it down and use the pieces that have been inked up for the rest of my card. And I'll show you what that means. So I'm going to start here at 4 inches and draw a line, 3.5, 3. Now when I get to 3, what you can see here is that most of this is the flower, and I don't want to draw the lines on top of it. 2.5. I want to make this look like the wood is behind our image, so I'm only drawing lines here at the top. Down to 1/2 inch. If 1/2 inch is hard for you to do, don't draw it this way, just flip it around. And I did flip this around so that what I can do now is check and draw some lines here at the bottom so it looks like the lines continue behind the image. Alright, so we have every 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5, 2 inches, 2.5, 3 inches, 3.5, and 4 inches. Okay, take this away. We're going to use 3 different inks today that are in the brown family. So we're going to use Crumb Cake, Pecan Pie, and Early Espresso. When I use these, I want to make sure that I am using not a flat stroke, but one where I have raised it up, because what I want to do is try to control the amount of the ink pad touching the paper. I don't want long lines of ink on my cardstock. What I want to do is flip it up like this, and I want to do just quick strokes as I go from top to bottom. Okay. And you can vary however light or dark you want it to be. The next color we're going to do is Pecan Pie. And you don't have to worry about these edges here because these edges are going to be cut off. So, you know, I can't get to the very edge sometimes, and that's okay because it's not going to be seen. If you hold on the side you're not inking, like I am, you have less chance of getting ink on your fingers. And again, I'm trying to get just little bits of that ink on my cardstock. The last color I'm going to use in the brown family is Early Espresso. You can already see that this is looking like it's already been carved. So when you carve something, the wood that you carve away looks lighter. So what I'm doing now is just adding the Early Espresso to the edges to make it appear that it could have been burned. I think it gives it a nice look. Also, if you want to do, if you want to add the dark color here, I found by using my blending brush, it was a lot easier to control the amount of color just by rubbing over the top here. I did not want to risk swiping down, and let me show you on the back here. I didn't want to risk something like this happening. That's what happens when the pad grabs the paper. And it's okay with the other colors, I think, but I did not want to add that much as far as the darkest color on my paper. So that's a thing that I did by using the blending brush to add color to this. Now, this is where Tina finished by doing this. What I wondered was, what would it look like if I added color to the debossed part of my image? You can see that it's white. So I'm going to take some strawberry slush on a blending brush, and I'm just going to work on the image with that. And you can see it's coming out. The brush is getting into those areas, and you don't need a lot of ink. You make it as light or dark as you want, but you can add ink, you can't take it away. Alright? So now I have an image that has color to it. To me, makes it look a little more feminine than masculine. And now my panel is ready to cut and to add to a card base. Let me show you samples of the cards that I did with some of our embossing folders. The first one that I did was the Seaside Wishes, and unfortunately that's on the last chance list. But take a look. You can see that the Early Espresso is here, and it does look like wood. The added bubbles here on this kind of makes it look like the knots in the wood or wormholes, which I thought made it look pretty realistic. This is using the Adoring Hearts hybrid folder. Again, I drew the lines. To me, this looked very country, so I added a ribbon and a bow, a sentiment, and embellishments. So these could be masculine or feminine depending on how you do that. This is the Happy Hibiscus embossing folder. In Tina's video, she used Coastal Cabana as well as those browns. When I was doing it, I did not see the Coastal Cabana very much when I was applying it, but boy did I see it when it dried. So this really has a green tinge to it, which looks okay. It's not exactly what I wanted, but I like overall how the card came out. This is the Forever Plaid embossing folder. I liked this because it really, to me, looked masculine with Tina's colors, the browns and then the Coastal Cabana. It gave me an idea of what if I did colors with this and I tried boho blue. So this was the browns, and then I put boho blue on this. Added designer paper, the plaid paper, stamped my greeting on that, and then used an embossing folder that looks like it's been crimped underneath, so it gave it some texture. I added some linen thread and some embellishments. This is the Layered Florals embossing folder. This is on the Last Chance list also, very similar to the other. What I did on this one was I distressed the edges, added some ink, a sentiment, and then some embellishments. This is the Fern 3D embossing folder. I would love to see what this looks like if you added green to this, so that'll be something I'll try. But I took our butterflies, which are on the Last Chance list, and I colored them with brown in the center and my boho blue. And then I added some Wink of Stella, some embellishments here, and my sentiment. This card used Changing Leaves embossing folder. This was actually a hybrid folder, so it cut out the leaves and embossed at the same time. These leaves in the center here are leaves that were some of my first images that were colored, and you can see that when you use a very well inked ink pad, you get a saturation that you may not want. But when it dried, I liked the mix of the colors, and so I used it as my kind of decorations here on this card, along with the linen thread. This is the Zinnia folder, and unfortunately that's retired, but I loved the look of the flowers, and I wanted to see how our butterfly would look on this card. The butterfly was colored with colored pencils. Then I used my blending brush. No, I didn't. I used... What did I use? I used this. I used my blender pen. Then I added Wink of Stella to it. And boy, it really shines in real life. Another thing you can do with this is to use some dyes. That's another video. But you can use your dyes on your paper with your silicone mat, put it through, and it will deboss for you so that you can color it. So now you can look at your embossing folders and your dyes and see what you have that you can put together for a card. The last two that I'm going to show you are not Stampin' Up! Embossing folders, but I wanted to show you what it can look like when you add color to the brown. Now this is a rose embossing folder or a flower embossing folder. I'm not sure exactly what the flower is, but I colored them yellow with Daffodil Delight and then Old Olive for the leaves, and I really thought this was a stunning look for this card. You can see here that the lines go across the image, so I learned, alright, with an image this large, I may not want to do the lines first. I may want to do my embossing first and then add the lines like I did in this video. The last one uses the Costa Cadena again, and you can see the very distinct lines here for the wood, which I think really adds to it. And in this card, what I did was I used some of the paper that was cut away for my sentiment and also for the background to the sentiment. On the inside, I have the paper that was made before I cut it. Then I used the paper that I cut to add to my card. In all the cards I used very vanilla. You certainly could use white. I haven't tried it with white yet, but you can see what it would look like if you do white. So we have a whole lot of samples here of things you can do with embossing folders. And like I said, you're going to run to your embossing folder storage area and look for all the different kinds of things you can do with embossing folders. I still haven't gone through all of mine yet. And you're going to have a great time. I hope you liked this technique, and I hope you give it a try. And thanks for watching.